Hi, and welcome to the conference room, an interactive book club where each week we discuss, analyse, and predict based on the group of chapters we've just read. I'm Matthew, who Kindle streaks competitively against no one. Currently,
I'm Liam, the Asdan Muggle, the would-be author who can barely spell.
And I'm Zak, the audible opportunist, prophet, who is currently dying of COVID.
welcome to the book club, where one week you're a god, the next week you can be a peasant or one of the other titles you've just heard. So welcome back if this is your second, third, fourth, fifth time watching. Hope you enjoyed the last couple of chapters. This week we are covering chapters 26 to 30 of The Name of the Wind. Good series of chapters, sort of front-loaded with a big wad of a chapter at the start of a few smaller ones afterwards, but all very, very interesting, where we learn lots of little bits of lore. Just a little catch-up and summary of these chapters. So Kavoth has been a street urchin for 3 years now. Yet this is due to change in these series of chapters. Kavoth and we, as the readers, meet Scarpy, the storyteller, and we hear the origin stories of the Chandrian and Tehlu as Kavoth's recent past sort of catches up with him. And Kavoth is finally awoken by these events, and he turns his eyes finally towards the university. Big sort of plays these chapters, and nice little change of pace on the horizon with another sort of setting we're going to. We've been with the troop, we've been on the streets with Kavoth, and shortly we'll be with Kavoth at the university. I'm sure you're both very excited for that.
So excited. We've been waiting for this for a while, and now there we go. It's on the horizon. But I was just so happy to meet.
God.
I was just so happy to meet Scarpy at last.
He wasn't
teased to us a little bit, but finally the big unveiling. What were you going to say, Lums? He wasn't.
I think we all sort of thought he was a professor at the university, but it doesn't seem like he was now. It seems like he's obviously something sort of mystical, but it's not quite sure what he actually is yet, except for being a sort of a kick-ass storyteller.
Well, I don't know if we all thought he was going to be a professor. I know you did. I'm not sure if I agreed to that.
Yeah, I kind of thought he was going to be like a fellow street urchin, but he's kind of like this older guy, but also seems like a street urchin as well. The audiobook voice, he's this proper gruff man, so it really just sends that home.
Fair enough.
That is how I sort of view him, though, to be fair. Very intriguing character. I've got a little prediction for later about who Scarpy may truly be. But I reckon some of you two might have something similar on the horizon as well. So it's sort of who gets in there first for the prophecy points. But yeah, should we jump straight into chapter 26? I think that's with Mr. Liam Chapman, chapter 26. Lanre turned. So I don't know where Zak is. I've not got the stream open, but the format we've been doing, what we started last week, is we're going to have sort of 2 minutes. God, it's not called hotboxing. What's it actually called?
Time box.
Time box. 2 minute time box. It's 2 minutes total, and we're all just going to sort of jump in with our little ideas. So each of us will take it in turns to give a summary of the chapter, and then 2 minutes discussion, and we'll jump on to the next one. 2 minute time box. I need to get that in my head rather than my hotbox.
I might need just to sort of shit on that a little bit. I might need 3 minutes for this because obviously my chapter was.
Oh no! So we don't start the timer until you've done the summary.
Oh, okay.
Is that right?
Okay, cool.
Yeah, you do your little summary, and then we'll have 2 minutes to just chat about it. And it was a chunk.
Right. Okay. Cool. Right. We ready?
Let's go.
Yeah. Right. Take it away.
Years have passed since we last saw Kavoth in Tarbeen, and he is now around 15. At Trappist's, he hears of a man dockside that claims to know every story. He even say that he'll wager if he doesn't know it. Kavoth doesn't want to go to dockside, however, because Pike is there, and over the years them two have had some run-ins. They haven't seen each other for a while and haven't actively tried to find one another out. However, there is still bad blood between them. If Kavoth does decide to go, he decides he will ask about the story his father wanted to tell, the story of Lanre. Now, I'm doing this in parts again, so I've skipped a bit out there. There was some brutal stuff that happened between uh, Pike and Kavoth. Like we obviously can discuss that in the time box. Kavoth enters the inn and eyes Scarpy for the first time. He's surrounded by children who are paying money for him to tell a story. Kavoth suggests Lanre, and so Scarpy begins the tale of the creation war. Scarpy tells the story of Celitos. Is that right, Zach? Did I say that right?
Celitos?
Celitos. Okay, there we go. That's always good to get confirmed. Celatov, Lanre, and Lyra. Celitos is a powerful wizard type that protects a city from a war with his clairvoyant sight. Lanre and Lyra are lovers and fight on the battlefield with one another. In one fight, Lanre beats a giant beast, but then is killed shortly after. Lyra says his name and calls him back from the doors of death. After some time, Lanre returns to the city and meets Celitos alone. Once there, Lanre binds Celitos and allows for the enemy to come in and overwhelm the city. It's at that point that we find out that Lyra was killed. Lanre was unable to call her back and tried to kill himself, but the power that was in him brought him back. Lanre hopes that Celitos can kill him, but he says he cannot. Celitos stabs out his eyes to ensure that he always sees again, and then curses Lanre, who now calls himself Haliax.
Big.
Yeah. After the story, Scarpy and Kavoth have a brief conversation. Kavoth mentions about the stories being true, and Scarpy says that all stories are one story that you have to lie in. That you have to lie in to tell a good tale. So basically, he's saying it's a bit of like foreshadowing there, because obviously he's saying that every story that he tells, you've got to lie in to make the story good. And obviously, Kavoth is telling these stories to the chronicler, so it is interesting. Scarpy knows that he'll see Kavoth again. So that was another thing as well. Kavoth said, "I'll see you again," and I'm pretty sure Scarpy says his name there or something, or maybe in a later chapter. But
No, later.
Okay. So yes, that was basically chapter 26, a big chapter in terms of a whole sort of lore dump again, but done in such a way that it was just very well done.
Yeah, very well done. I don't know if we were live at the time, but that short story was one, like Zach was saying, how much he's like sort of dream writing, be able to write a really engaging, solid short story in 20 minutes. So yeah, it was incredibly well written.
Yeah, basically with all characters we'd never met before. So yeah, let's go into that lore a bit more. So Celitos, who is this like amazingly powerful namer, he said that only 3 people can like best him at naming or on his level, and that was Aleph, who we don't know yet. There was Ajax, who we don't know yet, and there was Lyra. But then also Heliax comes along, and he's also suddenly a really powerful namer as well.
Yeah. I'm going to take a quick segue from the lore just to sort of go over. Liam touched upon like that encounter between Pike and Kavoth being brutal. It definitely was. So Kavoth finds Pike's hideout, sort of burns all his stuff. Pike catches up with him, beats him, I think stabs him at one point with a shiv. They run away, and then they chasing Kavoth. He gets some like alcohol or something, waits from above them, pours it on him, and then burns Pike. Like literally drops a match and just sets him aflame. Like really was savage. And that stops Kavoth from wanting to go to that side of town again, which we later hear Scarpy to be.
And he did that out of pure spite as well. He had this hoard of 20 iron pennies, which he said was like a dragon's treasure, and he spent all of that on this super like powerful alcohol that he could set on fire.
Just wanted vengeance, which is interesting actually for one of the chapters coming up where he talks about the sort of 2 ways of looking at getting your vengeance and not.
But I think the huge twist there was that Lanre turned out to be Heliax.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't see that coming.
No, I think there's going to be lots of people in these stories are going to be people we know or will encounter.
Yeah, definitely.
Big chapter. So, are we straight into 27?
Yeah, let's
Yeah,
go
go
straight
for
into
it. We
27.
can root round, can't we? Afterwards.
Yeah,
On that stuff, that's it.
27 by Mr. Zak. Oh, what? I don't know. I shouldn't say last name, I guess. By Mr. Zak. His eyes unveiled.
My surname is Alakin, by the way, so Zak Alakin is what people call me. Chapter 27, His Eyes Unveiled. So, Kvoth was invigorated by Scarpy's story, but he has this niggling feeling that he was forgetting something. He soon comes to the realization that Heliax, from the story, was the person who murdered his troop and his parents. So this was a super short chapter, but after the priest, after a robed priest who was like covered in shadow, that just visually jogs his memory of Cinder. And yeah, just such a huge realization. So we also find out that Heliax is the master of the Chandrian, and that was Lanre who murdered his parents. He explains the reason that he struggled to make this connection is because he had been living like an animal in Tarbeen for nearly 3 years. He had grown used to avoiding his painful memories the same way that a cripple keeps weight of an injured leg. Yeah, one of the other interesting things was, he says the best meal he had in months was cheese, sausage, bread and beer, which cost 4 iron pennies. And I've worked out the cost of the iron pennies as well, so iron pennies are about £2 a penny.
£2 a penny.
Yeah, so 1 iron penny is worth about £2, I reckon. So his hoard of treasure earlier, which was 20 iron pennies, that was about 40 quid, you know.
Jesus, which is probably a lot for a street urchin.
Yeah, not bad. Liam, you'll be interested. They mentioned that Cinder had black eyes again.
Yes, they did. They did. More evidence going into the chamber.
Exactly.
We need to finally
We
get
had
off
a
the
prediction about Haliax/Cinder, didn't we?
Yes, we did. Yeah, we'll go through those at the end. But yeah, I think a couple of predictions have come true. They also confirmed that, or he confirmed that his parents were killed for singing entirely the wrong songs. Kind of interesting. I guess this is why we know so little about Heliax being Lanre, if they just start killing anyone who starts talking about them. So I was kind of wondering at this point, will Scarpy be killed for telling his story?
Yeah, no, that was. It sort of leads into my prediction later, so I won't go into like my full sort of thoughts, but I think he just sort of shows Scarpy's a bit of a badass because him telling these stories, he clearly knows a lot about them, but he's not fearful of them because he's telling them to a crowd of people, and like the Kavoth's parents hadn't even told the story to anyone yet was seemingly tracked and hunted down for saying this story by the Chandrian, and yet Scarpy's literally talking to an inn full of people, just blatantly, like really blasé about it. So I think it says a lot about Scarpy.
Yeah, is he immune, do you think, or do you think he's just got big balls?
Mate, both.
I think it's probably. I think what. I mean, this isn't a prediction at all, but I think what Kavoth's parents were trying to do was probably something a bit more magical than just telling the story. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it was just literally telling the story. I think they were working with Abernthy to do something. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong, but it just feels like surely you can't just get done or like killed by the Chandrian for telling the story.
I wonder if there's one piece of information, like talking about him in general is fine, but there's one specific thing you can't talk about, and maybe Scarpy didn't talk about it, but his parents did.
I think it's knowing their names. I think I've said that in a couple episodes ago. I think knowing their name, which is why I think Kavoth's like in for some trouble with them because he left there knowing their names, and I think that's going to get him in trouble.
Oh yeah, interesting. And then the chapter ends, and he kind of has this realization that he maybe needs to get revenge, but he says, "Kill the Chandrian, kill Lanre. How could I even begin? I'd have more luck stealing the moon. At least I know where to look for the moon at night." And he also says, "Revenge is beyond me, at least for now."
Yeah, I think that's foreshadowing.
Big promises.
Well, we know he grows into some kind of beast.
I know, we're going to have some predictions later, I think. But yeah, chapter 28, Matt. Tehlu's watchful eye.
Tehlu's watchful eye. So Voth awakes late and runs to the inn to hear Scarpy tell another story because he's sort of wanting to see him again. So he wants to ask him some questions. I think following on from that last chapter, maybe about how to kill the Chandrian. However, he arrives late. He wakes up late as a bit of a lay-in. And we join the inn halfway through a story. And I believe the story is in the aftermath of Lanre becoming Aliax. So I've just scrolled down. How are we saying it?
Celitos.
Selitoff gathers a band of warriors and goes to seek help to defeat Haliax from how are we saying it? Is that Aleph?
Aleph? Just Aleph.
Aleph. It's Aoeph. Aleph. Who is apparently God? Question mark.
He's not God, but he's obviously very powerful. I think he's. I don't know. I was trying to figure it out.
Yeah, he's like Zach said, he's got a lot of power, which I'll go into in a second. But yeah, I didn't know if he was God or something like that. Aleph refuses to help them, and he states that personal things must be set aside. Yet Selitos refuses, as his heart tells him he must stop things before they are done, rather than just sort of let them happen and then deal with them after. Not wait for it to happen and then punish. Some of his warriors that he's turned up with sort of side with Aleph, and they're like blessed by him. He touches their hands, their eyes, their heart, which do lots of different things. But the last touch brings pain as wings tear from their back and they are never seen again by mortal sight, except for those of great power. But seeing them brings great peril. Now, interestingly, on those bits, I'm sure you two have noted it down, but sort of those touches that I skimmed upon there. It's a transformation, isn't it? Like, he's turning these people into seemingly angels, is what I want to call them. And I think that's a fair to say thing, isn't it? Like, I'm viewing it as God creating his angels, essentially, here. Really interesting sort of notes on the wings they get. A weird description of wings, like opposites almost. There was wings of fire and shadow, of iron and glass, stone and blood. Some other interesting things here with the power of names, because Aleph speaks their long names, and I think that's the first time we've heard it described as long names. I don't know what that sort of means, unless it's like their true name, something like that, or is it God bestowing upon them their new identity as they're reborn? I'm not too sure. And they're sort of covered in a white flame, which then goes to their wings, which makes them swift, flickers in their eyes. Again, something for Liam. Again, something important about eyes, which helps them see into the deepest hearts of men. And they fill their mouths and they sing songs of power until it reaches their foreheads like silver stars, and they become righteous, wise, and terrible to behold. Very, very intimidating set of angels we have here. We hear that Tehlu is the greatest of them, but before we can hear the conclusion of this story being told by Scarpy, two priests who have sort of just been in the background of the inn appear to arrest Scarpy. The people of the inn, Scarpa, the innkeeper's intimidated to bribery, yet Scarpy just mouths off to them saying they shouldn't be doing this. They should be using their time as priests to do some good rather than arresting storytellers and extorting honest men. And he starts calling them small men, things like that. And these priests just get more and more agitated by him. They start hitting Scarpy. There's a dialogue which to me makes it sound like Scarpy, and it leads into one of my predictions we'll go over properly later, but like has some kind of relationship or understanding of Tehlu, in saying that Tehlu hates the priests more than the rest of the world does, which is a lot, and laughs when the priest hears Scarpy say this and just says, God have mercy on your soul, and then Scarpy just bursts out into laughter at the fact that the priest is saying that to him. And then the final bit of the chapter is Scarpy sort of speaks again, seemingly to everyone else in the inn, to no one, but calls Kavoth by his name and tells him to run head for the rooftops as Scarpy has people in the church that will help him. But just to be clear, at this point, like Scarpy and these priests are on one side of the bar, just having their thing. Kavoth's well away, and yeah, Scarpy's just directing a message clearly at Kavoth, and Kavoth does as Scarpy says.
Yeah, so that's a good point there. Scarpy says Kavoth's name, and he shouldn't know Kavoth's name, right?
No, not
Yeah.
at all. No.
So, and when they described Lyra's powers, they said that she knew the names of things. So that seems to be how the power works, right? So Scarpy has some sort of gift, and he knows the hearts of men, maybe.
Yeah, this is it. And interestingly, do you think by Scarpy naming Kavoth, because slight spoiler for the next chapter, but Kavoth leaves the inn and this incident with like a new mindset. Do you think it's fair to say that by Scarpy naming Kavoth, it sort of forced that mindset, or is it just? Am I reading too much
I
into
didn't
it?
consider that, but that's interesting because that's what we just learned. So Aleph, by using his gift of naming, he's able to physically grant people powers. So maybe, yeah, Scarpy named Kvoth and awoke him in some way. Interesting.
Yeah, no, that sounds
Yeah.
that sounds reasonable. I mean, Kavoth probably hasn't heard his name for however long.
Yeah, so it could just be that as well.
He could, yeah.
I wonder if he already started coming back to his senses because he realised who Heliax was, and that kind of brought him back to reality a little bit.
Yeah, I think that is the counter argument. I thought it might be interesting. He's named Kavoth, and we know naming things is important.
Yeah.
And he shouldn't know Kavoth's name, like you said, Zach. Like, they're not that close. I mean, Kavoth listened to him read one story. That's it. And
He doesn't question it though, and I would have thought he would otherwise.
what, Kavoth?
Yeah, he's not like, oh, how does he know my name?
No, he just accepts it, goes, and then tries to become a new man.
Yeah. And so I think Aleph, I think he is just another great namer. So you had Celitos, Aleph, Lyra, Ajax, and now Heliax. So they're just like the 5 great namers of that age, I think.
Yeah, potentially. But it's like Liam said before, like real strong, like religious undertones to this.
Yeah.
Like I'm thinking those 5 namers almost like disciples of God. Like it's very, very similar kind of feeling I'm getting from this.
It's interesting. We've got Aleph with his army of angels. We've got Heliax with his army of Chandrian, which I'm assuming are demons now.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what Celitos is doing. Like, it sounds like he's just got some rogue band that's hunting Heliax, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
So is that
because they sort of go their separate ways in that thing, don't they? Like there's Celitos doing his thing. You got the angels, and their motives is slightly different, but I don't know if they've got the same.
It's like good evil, and then like an anti-hero. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you reckon that's who running?
Or save it.
Yeah.
Predictions.
Okay.
Well, I feel like we kind of already made that prediction, right? But yeah, we'll discuss more.
Chapter 29, big boys.
Here we go. Right.
The doors of my mind.
I'm glad you read that down because I didn't. Shall I start?
Didn't. Zach told us before we went live.
Oh, hold on. What have I done there? Oh, no, it's good. Right. Ready? Shall I start?
Let's go.
Take it away.
So, Kavoth reawakens from his mentally docile state, and he is elated by it. He suddenly has a flood of memories from his parents and Abinthy and the strange night with Heliax and the Chandrian. In the end, he surmises that although he is too small to stop them himself, he could go to their enemy and he could go to Heliax's enemy and seek revenge that way. He begins to pack up his stuff, including his book that Abinthy gave him, and then read the note in the back. It was that it, because I feel like I should have written more here, but I've gotten distracted and left it. Can anyone else remember what happened in that chapter?
So yeah,
no, that's right. It does end with him just reading Abinthy's book, doesn't it? Because it says be careful of folly I can't remember what exactly it says in the book, but it says I can go and get it if you want. It says
The message
such and
from
such
Ben,
is,
yeah, it's like remember
yeah,
remember your father's song and prepare for uni or something.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
That's
no, it
it.
really is. And no, don't stress him. I think these chapters, it was literally that. They were like a page or something crazy. There wasn't a
Yeah,
lot to it.
Yeah.
yeah,
The big thing here is that he started doing those mind exercises that Ben taught him once.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, he
But
starts
there's
becoming
my point
himself.
about Scarpy. He does that once he's named. I don't know.
It is
But
yeah.
interesting.
and like Liam said, there is a flood of memories. So it's like he left the inn and boom, I'm back to myself. It could just be all these things are piling up, but it could be that Scarpy's
Yeah,
got some kind of power.
there's magic involved.
He remembers what Heliax says to Cinder. He says, "Who keeps you safe from the Emir, the Singers, the Scythe, all that would harm you in the world?" And we now know who the Emir are. The Emir are that army of angels, right? Or
Yeah,
were they the army of angels, or were they Celatos's army?
I think they're Celatos's. But that's just clever writing again by Patrick Rothfuss because that was like 5, 6, 7 chapters ago we heard that. So Kavoff's been reminded of it as we are as well. He's like, you've just learned what this is. Like, remember
Remember
this
this?
bit? It's remember this? It's now this bit. I've given you an answer. Clever.
Another interesting thing is the church say that the Emir were created 300 years ago, and they're thought to be the right hand of the church. But Scarpy said it began with Celatos, and also the church. No, sorry, the church said that they died 300 years ago, but Scarpy said it began with Celatos, and Heliax implied that they're still alive.
Mm.
Almost
It's weird,
like
isn't it? I'm more keen to side with Scarpy than this
Yeah.
like, church that's been existing for 500 years.
yeah. It's almost like the Emir sound like Crusaders now. You know, like how they ever
Yeah.
played like or watched the Da Vinci Code or like played Assassin's Creed. There's always that secret societies of people.
I
out
love the
there.
Da Vinci Code. I
Yeah.
love the scene in it where he goes through the painting and all of that.
Yeah, and
Like that 5 minutes, I'm so into that.
yeah.
Chapter 30. I haven't watched the Da Vinci Code, so yeah, Chapter 30, the broken binding. So here, Kvoth shows us that he's back. He outwits the shopkeeper. He's using big words. But more importantly, he sells his most prized possession, rhetoric and logic. They've made such a big deal over this over the last 3 years of his life, how it's his one last attachment to his old life. And he's selling it to pay for transport for uni. And he gets quite a lot of money for it. He gets 2 silver talons, which earlier in the season they said a silver talon was 150 iron pennies, I think. So that's like, it's like £500 or something. Don't know, it's a lot of
And
money.
what's interesting on that as well is that it is a lot of money, and the shopkeeper's ready to buy that off someone who he thinks like has nicked it and off the street. So it's even worth a lot more than that because he's thinking, "Oh, I'll give you £2 for it. You don't know what this is worth," and yet
Yeah.
he's giving him a small fortune, let alone its true value.
I think it just goes to show how poor he is on the streets. Like, like maybe the book is only worth like 20 quid or something, and just to Kavoth, this is an absolute fortune. Or for a peasant, it's like 2 months worth of food. But yeah, he sells it to the bookkeeper. He even like outsmarts him by getting him to write a receipt. But he actually says that he's going to pay him back 20 silver shims instead, or 2 silver shims instead of 2 silver talons, 2 silver pennies instead of 2 silver talons. So if he wanted right now, he could be like, "Here's my receipt. You're just going to give me that book back for less money than I bought it." But yeah, he also steals pen and ink before he goes as well, so his like little bit of uni supplies. But I have to say, it's quite funny. Like, he's just said he's like this homeless kid. I think he's only wearing one shoe. He's covered in dirt, and he's clearly very clever. He's like come back to his senses. He's about to head off to uni, and yeah, good luck to him. All he's got is like a bottle of ink and a pen that he's stolen.
This whole thing didn't play out how I expected it to with Kavoth going to uni. Like, I thought there'd been some big unveiling of him using powers. I mean, there still might be. Because is he expected just to go to uni and be like, "Oh, I'm joining now"? So there's
Yeah,
question
that's
marks
what I
there.
thought.
But
Don't worry, I've
I
got.
also thought the book was going to be almost his ticket in, it being like a book that you don't get unless you are at the university or something like that. But he's just sold it for transport money. So yeah, it's taken a different route to what I expected at the
Yeah.
minute. Like,
He's just going to have to blag his way in. He's going to have to talk to someone important and prove how clever he is.
mm. Also, what's really interesting, I loved that scene with the shopkeeper because the shopkeeper tries to mug Kavoth off by writing some sarcastic note, thinking he can't read, he's just some like idiot off the street.